Yeah, so how I came with this idea. Well, after a long time not seeing you, amazing people, after lockdown, it's just so great to renew, right, our BIM community in Vancouver. I feel sometimes we're kind of left behind from the rest of the world. And the topic which is coming to me over and over, it's the 3D quantity takeoff. I've worked in Germany for 7 years, and where it was that big. Like, it was not about 4D visualization, it was not about getting design right and clash detection, it was about getting quantities from 3D. So I was like, from till like figured out how I can build models so that I can get the right budget. So here, being in Vancouver for 8 years now, like than I was working before, it's still kind of very uncertain point. And the main problem is how we are receiving models, how we are receiving them, who is responsible, right, for this model, and yeah, liability is the question. So with great people, with great professionals, we just really brainstorm how general contractors are trying to support estimation and point expand my estimator Igor. That's what we do. Yeah. And so this is kind of BIM in construction, and we're speaking about quantities inside, like how we can do it better, how we can coordinate all life of the construction better, so the designers know what does it mean to us to receive the right, correct budgets, so that the clients will be happy and no crazy updates. Yeah, so that's me. For the do, Ksenia Gridenko. I was before at Ellisdon, now I'm at Etra Construction. Happy to be there. And yeah, so very enthusiastic, the same big freak as Ori is about BIM and VDC. Many years, that's really my passion. And I would like to speak exactly how Etro is doing that, why we are doing that, and 3 of us having different approach, how we can support estimation. So the key of Etro, maybe a little bit egoistic, but I'm not speaking to our estimator so much, just because exactly I know how they are creating their budget. They're following their master format 2016. They have some audits in terms of Etro specific. And the question is how I can modify the data, what I have inside of the 3D, so that they will be happy with our results, right? Because at the end of the day, after they are receiving the model, it can be restructured and refiltered whatever, how, right? But if I don't have the right model and I don't have the parameter what I'm looking for, my data on their end is just not really clear. Like, where's my concrete for this footings? Where's my data for this steel? Right? And this is exactly about creating these buckets from the model and where they are going inside of the master format. So at the end of the day, if the model is not structured, what they're receiving is just like a total numbers. This is the total volume of the concrete. This is the total volume of the steel. This is the length, right? This is the counts, which is usually coming well about. So how a BIM team can support this. And so finally, we came with the very simple, actually, suggestion. We just need to ensure that in the structural models that we receive will be embedded the sample code that comes from them. Why this? And yeah, so exactly, I will just click through to show you guys why. I know that there's the level of knowledge is different in this room, so I will try to get a little bit more feedback, the background, how it's coming and why it's exactly this particular construction standard is used. But if we are speaking with the design, how this assemble code is coming inside of the Revit. And actually, I think the majority of you here, if you are using BIM forum, the specification and a level of details, this is already embedded. The UNI format is there. like if you're downloading the Excel spreadsheet. It's just exactly about figuring out your post code, which is as well has a reference inside of the BIM forum document. So it's nothing really wild and new what we discovered. It's just about to make it consistent. And making consistent is obviously to bring this matrix inside of your BIM execution plan and working with your, in our case, structural engineer to get it done. So here you can see that the levels of this code can be as well deeper and deeper. They can be measured like level 1, level 2, level 3. And this is exactly how where we wanted to add, right? Like how we are moving forward. Yeah, so LD matrix, this is here the thing, but why this is good? Because this UNI format, as it's based on the system and assemble, exactly like a Revit is, right? You're taking foundation, right, of slab, you're taking your wall, right, and you know which materials you're using. So it's exactly this assemble, if it's a structure, if it's a shelf, if it's interior, this is already there. So this in the assemble code, how you saw it on the first screenshot, this is as well already plugged in into Revit. So it's just about to select it. And even though our partners like structural engineer will come later, or we decided to modify the model, it's very quickly done. So you're just like selecting the family and it will be assembled added. So this is kind of the key of this systems inside, right? In comparison to the master format, which is how you know, like get very intense and very detailed. And it's as well about stage of the design. So actually, to get the proper estimation, we have to have all drawings done, right? So how designers in the beginning can help us if the drawings are not done. We are still value engineering, we are this and this. So this is the reason why this UNI format is actually coming first, like is the total budgets, the total quantity, sorry, and then we can apply the master format with the cost code on the structure. Yeah, just as screenshots of like if somebody haven't seen it, how detailed one master format can go, and the UNI format in terms of like sub-construction shelf. And inside of the Revit, you will see exactly the same. If you want to change the code, yeah, you will just guide it to the substructure, which footing is. Usually it's already pre-selected if it's exactly concrete element, if a structural element or interior element. I didn't want to get live as we have quick presentations here, but I have my work laptop with me. So if somebody is very curious to see it, I'm more than have to show it. So main problem on our end, quality that we are receiving. So how I said, we are working with the structural models for ensuring that we get these quantities quite. Well, this is the most expensive one. We need to buy material. So this is exactly what we controlling how much concrete we need, how much steel we need, and the envelope is the second portion of the budget, right? How much the envelope will cost. We need to ensure that that's correct done. And as we're receiving designers models, we are going through the quality check. I don't like to be a bad police, but you know how it is being people, we are always bad police and pointing out the errors of others. Fortunately, we are not welcome to the other parties. That's the reason why we have to create our party to understand each other. So we are not really sharing this data. It's like for internal use. But if it's a crucial errors like not consistent project-based point, right, or it's like even grid lines can be off in the different designers, we have to highlight them. The project, what I will show you later at UBC, right, we had a big issue, like 20 centimeters issue between location where it was provided by the designers, by the architects, and where the building's supposed to be. So it's like, it just was a question of time when it will be figured out. Yeah, so quality is the thing what we are running through, and it's a big thing. We usually we're receiving Revit models. If it's not Revit models, we are loading models into Revit. and then extracting to assemble. This is unfortunately one of the Autodesk products, but still my favorite, just because our estimator group is not required to know Revit. So assemble reads the data from Revit. That's not rediscovering or calculating something. You can add your internal formulas. You can modify data, and I will show exactly in this slide how. But actually, the key is that it's very user-friendly and easy to filter. Like whatever you have in Revit, you will find here. And this as well, great tool for the quality control, obviously. I think that Sean will maybe say as well this direction, like how it works. And yeah, so exactly, we are using that for providing the quantity takeoffs for the use. Usually it comes out to the Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, liking Excel spreadsheet, I guess. So here is it. This project, we ensure and communicate with the structural engineer that assemble code is in. I have to admit, it's back and forward. Some objects are not clear what assemble is going in. And this is exactly why we need the LOD named down in the BIM execution plan, and why we need like kind of blessing from the structural engineer. Yes, we are fine to communicate that. And then inside of assemble, you can apply the master code correctly. And then this data can be filtered by assemble over the master code. How I said, like, because assemble allowed you quick adding parameters. Here you can see the column on the big package. So further development of the estimators will be okay. I have the steel, but it will be two different big packages. I'm splitting them for the stair railway and like main construction structure, right? So different companies can be done different things. And yeah, so that can be better utilized and not necessarily just die in Excel spreadsheet or like develop it with the budget. And the other cool thing in terms of assemble, as I'm uploading models, they got version, and I can basically compare the previous set with this one. It's the most useful is just exactly to see the type and quantity changed in terms of the total volume. The information in terms of what was deleted and was added, that's a tricky one, because each of you, I think, know, or maybe you not know, Revit, as you're placing an object, has a certain ID, right? And if it's not nailed down in your model code that you are not allowed to delete objects without a reason, it's still happening. So maybe person just wanted to change the type of the wall, but instead deleting the wall and then placing the new object, right? And then this wall became got a new ID, right? Logical. And this is the reason why we may see that this was added, instead it was not added, but was changed. Right? It's kind of like a tricky technical point, and it's the reason why this removed and added, they are not really working well in terms of the data and quantities. Yeah, here I am with this solution, assemble code, how we are trying to filter the data so that can be utilized easily with the post code. Thank you for attention. Yeah, sure.
What you're saying is that you want, so what should happen, like in the web, you're not deleting elements, you're just changing them.
Yeah.
There needs to be some kind of.
It has to be rules, rules for the modeling. So exactly, back in the days, we will set up these rules. Like if you have a choice to change or to delete, you're going always for the change. And it is the same with the floor plans, right? The floor, sorry. There's sometimes modification of the floor that, or like one floor became another element, and then this old one will be deleted instead of like modifying that, right? So sometimes it's just faster to delete and not change. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it will be my personal priority.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great presentation. You answered most of my questions, done so well, but you mentioned that you're adding unit format codes to some of the elements. Am I understanding that correctly?
What?
you're modifying and adding new format codes to some of the elements in the design models or whichever models you can take off from.
So usually we are, because of the design models, right? Again, speaking about liability, they are not ours. So we are communicating that we would like to have them inside, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as they are provided to us, yeah, so that's kind of ours. So some situations, if the structural engineer from some reason say it's too much work for us, we don't want to have this, even though you could see that it's actually embedded in the Revit. So it's about like setting up your families, right? And by guidance and the old matrix, it's straightforward as well. We can modify that. Yeah. So it's usually it's obviously IFC package, right? It's we will not work through the design over and over, change it.
I'm starting to ask my second question. So have you had any success with working with some of the designers to sort of make a soft agreement like, hey, we would like to see this metadata in some of your elements of the field, including that.
Yeah, exactly.
And have you guys kind of worked with Dynamo scripting just to automate that if you take it on yourselves?
Oh, you even don't need the Dynamo because exactly that's embedded parameter. It's a plug, right? Which is inside. So you're just like clicking and you're selecting family and you're choosing your bank, and it's very quick. So it's like, obviously, like if you have, I don't know, like through assemble, I will know what is added wrong, right? Or which is not our intention. Today I was looking through this model and I noticed that actually it was elements of concrete that will be cast, but they were like provided as prefabricated. So it's just an error, right? And then it will, for me, I will just go in assemble and correct it. I will not touch Revit. And I will know that it's exactly at my end.
Well, follow up on the uniform master format for QA/QC process. So for a designer or for a contractor, how would the best approach to QA/QC? Would you recommend anything other than example?
Well, you don't need to use assemble for quality control. It will be just exactly schedule in Revit. I will just try to work with this. Yeah, so just like create the Revit, like what elements, what families have what code. Yeah. Or like if they have code, this is the thing, the key. It's more often that honestly, it's very tough to add code wrongly. That's very tough because it's like it's pre-selected and you have like maybe 2 or 3 options. It's like, you know, multiple choice test. And if you're a little bit in the construction, you will choose right. That's very tough. Like, and then it's just about like, was it added or not?
So follow up on that. What would be the best phase during the design to add this? Because maybe early on in the design,
Yeah.
might change what the evolution of the design elements.
I would say as soon as you're setting up your families for the project, right? Like you're creating your Revit template and you know what families you're taking exactly there, just to check that assembles are there. And already, this is exactly the key in terms of like communicating with the GC. As we are working through the BIM execution plan, we will, the questions will arise, like how you're planning to add it to the estimation, right? And I was like, yeah, this code, right? And then, how I said, like in this LOD matrix from BIM forum, the level of details of the uniformat is very rough, like it's a level 1, level 2, but we can go deeper. So on each project, we are discussing this assemble code, in which direction it will go. Yeah, and then, yeah.
I understand why you're being challenged by the estimators after 4 months.
You can see this, yes. This is my estimator.
The question is, why? It's, we can be body rolling, we can be power takeoffs. It's a system used to get more products. So I'm just always pleased why.
Are you starting again?
Yeah.
So, I don't know how to answer your question why the industry is using the master format instead of Uni.
Yeah.
But I know why we have our cost code. And for example, like Etrock has their unique cost code. The master format is like 6 digits. We have 5. just because it's also working with our accounting software. So I wouldn't say it's master format, but because it's 5 digits and our accounting software uses 5 digits as well. So it's already combined. If I'm doing estimating, then later on they gonna go to bills, to the billing period. They're using the same codes. If it's again like the uniform number for me, it's not that clear. But again, I done a little bit of Revit, so probably you guys like an expert. But we follow industry. I think the master format was like that used for estimators since I don't know when. But it's just very hard to change the standard. Like everyone understands the master format from the subcontractor side, from client side, from GC side. BIM is more like you guys like your own group, and I'm trying to. That's why I'm trying to like learn as much as I can. But yeah, for me, master format is more clear.
I encourage towards broad innovation because like digital is 5 years ago, it changed the 6 digits.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is more like there's a master format also changed because it's not 16, but we are still far behind. Like right now it's even like 48. Again, these numbers keep rising every single year. But just for like simplicity, even to like show the budget to the client, I won't be showing like all 48 master formats. So that's why we focus on like kind of 16 division. So that's why it's unique. Probably Turner, other construction, they have your own codes, how you follow like your budgeting stage and process. But that's just our own. Yeah, but great question. Thank you.
Well, I would like to add it.
I would like, yeah, to be honest, that would be perfect word if we use all of us will understand and use the same codes.
Yet, how I said, like a sample code of new format, it's not giving the same level of details what estimators are dealing with, and estimation or budgeting of the project is just exactly like this is money, right? This is how right how we're estimating the project to be in them, and yeah, so that's kind of the tricky portion. I worked in Switzerland, and this was exactly like that. What is master format or postcode in Canada? That's like it's so easy in comparison to what's going on in Switzerland, just because of their political system. Everybody can add additional position, and like thousands of positions, and it will be insane to use BIM using their current estimation protocol. Yeah. And next, this comic amazing presentation from Annika.
So I'm Annika Chan. So I've been with Sana about 4 years in BDC. Yeah, and I'm happy to host here. And thanks for coming to our house. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about our approach, which is somewhat different to Metro's and Bert's approach, I guess, to how we do quantity takeoff and work with our estimation teams. So typically, just to give you a time frame, we usually start this in the pre-con stage. It can sometimes also continue through construction. Really, the way we produce our models is aligned to our different classes of estimates and what our estimation pre-con team require, and also tend to align with the design submissions. So whether it's DD, CD50, CD60, whatever it may be, it tends to align with the submittals. In terms of our workflow then, to give you an overview, we take the design documents, so design drawings and any 3D models that may exist. We like to ask for 3D models. In the past, we've not proactively asked for them that early on. And so that's something that's changed in working with our pre-con team to make them understand that asking for the model is a crucial thing. It helps us save a lot of time. Having said that, we only use it for reference. So we don't actually use it to produce our estimation models. We typically start from scratch and we take the drawings and we produce our own models. So a different approach to using the existing models. So we review these, we want to understand the design, and we want to understand what quantities our estimation team are requiring. And this may vary how they price jobs, and what estimates they're producing, and the quantities varies job to job. Typically they will have their templates and things, but they'll alter those to suit each job. So we want to understand that, and then we work together to kind of do that review, make sure we understand from our estimation team what they require, and make sure they understand what they can expect from the models. We then go away and produce the models. So as I mentioned, we recreate these from the drawings, and I'll mention in the next slide why that's been a benefit to us and why it's important. But typically we have 3 main models that we produce on most of our jobs. So it's a control quantity model, a building envelope model, and a concrete model is typically what we produce. We then export these and review them. So we export our quantities, and then we do a QA/QC check, several like collaborative meetings with our pre-con and estimation team. And then it's kind of an iterative process where we update the models if there's any tweaks needed, and then generate the quantities which go into the template. We then use that to present and submit that to the projects and to the client and our team. So it's been a really useful tool in that respect, because now you're not just providing, a spreadsheet of quantity that someone has to read. You're also showing them the visual. So there's a visual aid which goes with this, and that's been a great benefit for us, getting people to understand, but also to understand, what assumptions we've made along the way, because, if you're doing an SD estimate, there's lots of things that are still open to interpretation. And so be able to communicate those visually helps us to kind of provide more evidence or basis to support our quantities that we're submitting. And I've added this little logo in the corner there because it really is a collaborative effort between our team and the pre-con team. So we need both sides to make this service work, and that's what we're trying to work on within VDC. We don't want to be like BIM over here and everyone else over there. So we really want to be integrated into our department. So we're trying to work on establishing that more strongly. So you might be thinking like, why on earth are you building these models? Like we've got people have already worked hours building these models, and you're just going to scrap those and start again from scratch. And the reason is the reliability of the model. So what we've noticed is, as we've done a couple of projects and we get the drawings and we're building our models, when we're comparing that to the models that were provided from design, they're not actually marrying up. So they're not, there's discrepancies that we're finding. So I don't want to call it like drawing makeup, but that's pretty much what's happening. Is that people are not generating the 2D from 3D. They're actually just doing it how they used to do it because they think it's quicker and easier. But in the long term, that's causing us a lot of room for error. So that's one of the reasons. The second is that we can really build models that are fit for our purpose, so specifically for estimation. So design models are not for, they're not having the estimates in mind when they're producing the models. It's more for the communicating the design aspects. So we really want to build something that works with how we produce estimates specifically. So we're able to take objects and split them how we feel, or colorize them, or add attributes or parameters as we feel, which allows us to kind of extract quantities a lot more easily and extract quantities that fit into our templates that we work with from our estimation team. And I've put we want to work backwards. So we're trying to think. We want to think ahead of like what output do we want as to how we're going to build our model. So what quantities do we need to extract is typically our starting point, and then build our models according to that. So you can actually help us though. So what we need from design is we want to feel like we can trust the model. So it would be fantastic if any of the designers in here could actually have a more, they verify and check their models before sending them out. So I'm from the UK, and in the UK you pretty much have like 2 people sign off before anything gets delivered or submitted out. I find that here it's a lot more relaxed in that sense. I don't think there is that verification happening. So it would be really cool if you could actually just check the models first and just verify that, you know, what you see in the drawing is matching. Because a model is like an easy thing and an easy scapegoat for people to think, okay, we've got this 3D image now and we're just going to go in and trust it immediately. And who's actually checked that? You know, how many eyes have been on that model to check that? Usually just like tunnel vision because you're the one producing the model, and then, you know, there may be mistakes that happen as a result if we don't get more people looking at models. So check-in would be really cool. And then we want models that you can use. So the whole point of why we do BIM, you know, we want to reduce waste in construction. We want to smooth that graph out of, you know, as we're building up this whole of life data, how does it evolve over the different phases? So, you know, historically, we, you know, produce things at design, we dump some of it, and then we rebuild that same data again in construction, and then the same happens in operations and maintenance. And what we're really trying to do is make sure the data is built upon and there's less waste. So in order to do that, we want to be engaged earlier in projects. We want to kind of have this discovery call or an exploration of what design can do as they're initiating these models, to kind of, with having that future thought to construction in mind, like maybe considering, you know, is it a big lift to add an additional parameter to an object in the family, or is there some kind of naming or something that can be, you know, confirmed or consistent as we move from design to construction? Is there something in the way that models are produced so you're not spanning columns going all the way up your building, but splitting them out by level, or just small things like that, which can go a long way for us. So if we can be engaged in a little bit early, that would be also really helpful to us. And that is a big piece as well, because sometimes, you know, within companies, not all departments are linked. So sometimes your pre-con team might not understand the importance of, you know, bringing it. They might not think, oh, okay, we're having these early engagement meetings. Let's bring in someone from VDC to, you know, start these conversations. So I think having some interconnectivity with the other departments and making sure as a company, you know, you understand what's required at VDC at the different project stages will also help. So the types of estimation models we produce, so I mentioned the control model. So typically we're looking at perimeters and general floor areas in those models. Pretty reasonably quick to generate. We produce a concrete model. So there we're looking at specific quantities to the concrete, examples like formwork and volumes. Building envelope, so we're just trying to look at the different materials that make up the building envelope, and then providing quantities according to that. We have done excavation models as well, so we're looking at the cut and fill and, you know, how much volume of excavation is required, and if we can provide quantities to help site team effectively. One that's not on the list here is we also, so Turner is pretty well known for doing tenant improvement work. We have also produced quantity models for tenant improvement jobs, just more of a proof of concept to see, like, well, we do it on all these other jobs, why can't we do it for TIs? And the truth is you can. It's just that some of the jobs have a quick turnaround, so it's kind of level of effort versus, you know, if it's worth doing it. So these are types of models. We do also have these live. If anybody does want to look through them in more detail, we can do that after. In terms of the software we use SketchUp a lot more than Revit, I would say, in many respects. So SketchUp we find just offers a bit more versatility. It's not as closed in as Autodesk kind of have offered for Revit and things as closed APIs, but SketchUp is a bit more versatile, and we're able, there's a myth that it's not accurate, but it is accurate. It's as accurate as the information you're putting into it. So we tend to use that, and then we use ArchiCAD for our concrete models. The reason we use ArchiCAD and not Revit is because some of the formulas in Revit we found are not that accurate, or don't provide what we're looking for. So some of like the surface areas, the way it calculates it, you'd have to go into the formulas investigate further, but we found that it's not as accurate. So that's why we use a mix of those. And then we tend to also provide our estimation team with a consolidated model, which would contain all of the models within SketchUp. And then they'll just use SketchUp Viewer and go in and be able to navigate the model themselves. So we're trying to make a more stronger effort in training our teams to be able to view models. More eyes on the models equals just better learning all around. So in terms of our outcomes, definitely more accurate in using this approach. So traditionally doing quantity takeoff, if you trying to calculate quantities of things that are curved and different elevations can be a lot more time consuming and challenging. So modeling is a great solution to overcome that. Visual communication. So as I mentioned, to demonstrate to your clients that this is how we've produced our quantities and this is what we have. It's just a great visual tool to do that. And also just understanding the project early on as well, going through the drawings and showing a model to our teams. And then we also have the comparison piece. So I mentioned that different submittals or different classes of estimate will produce a new set of models. And then we're able to compare them and again, visually show that, but also with the quantity outputs that we have, it's just a lot easier to compare like for like. And then this increased integration and understanding. So I think we've had a lot of success recently with the integration that we have with our estimation team and pre-con as a whole in just being able to be on the same page. And we've kind of figured out now a bit more of a process that works on both ends in terms of what input information we need and what output information is needed too.
So you say that has increased accuracy, yes, really good. But how many of these models can we use after construction? Because we are basically rebuilding it from the design and from the designers. But can you use it post construction for traffic management? Because it could use all the data that at the same time is storage.
So for this specific purposes, this is specifically the models we produce for estimation. So typically it's more of a visual support tool. It's more of an aid, but it's also a way to get accurate quantities that are more reliable. So we wouldn't use these then for construction. I'd say we'd use, there's different various models that we produce. So for example, a logistics model, we could probably evolve that throughout the construction, maybe not into FM because we wouldn't need data associated. And then any models we produce in the construction management piece, so any models we're getting from our trades for the BIM coordination piece, that is what really we're going to be looking at focusing in terms of how models are produced. Do they have data associated to the way they're producing it? What's in your BIM execution plan that meets the project requirements and project needs? And if there is a facilities management requirement, then we really want to manage that process early on in how, So for shop drawings and things, it's going to be our BIM coordination process. So those are the models. So models that we're getting from the design team and our trades combined is what we would typically use for construction purposes. But the process of doing these means we can communicate to our design team and say, okay, we were building these models and we found this issue here. Your drawing says this, but what we're seeing in your model is this. So we're able to flag up issues to design early on as a result, as a byproduct of this. But we wouldn't use this for construction purposes.
Could you use this process for all the types of project delivery, or is more for the CM based job?
I'd say majority of our projects are CM, so primarily that, but it could be applied to any heat-free method.
Yeah, but I was asking if there is a more collaborative delivery approach, then you may not have to do all this.
Exactly. So that's why the ideal would be if we're engaged early. So maybe design build or IPD or something where you can get in earlier would definitely be more beneficial, so that we wouldn't have to rebuild every element of the thing, or there'd be better verification of drawings and models. Yeah. Yeah.
So just comparing Metro's approach with yours, theirs was more structural. This looks almost like maybe floors, roofs, and envelope. Is that accurate, or are you also modeling columns or rebar stuff like that?
Rebar very rarely, but we do have like a job in Seattle where it's very complicated, the aquarium in Seattle in downtown. It's like a huge tank, monolithically poured, and it's like very curvaceous and things. So for that particular project, we model rebar, but typically we wouldn't model rebar. But yeah, structural elements, yeah. So concrete, typically we'd model. Yeah. Just depends what estimation needs, we'll model it.
It will be kind of from this money because only because it was not able to model.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, we do look to optimize, and we do kind of do a bit of R&D where we're looking at automating some of it. So, for example, we're looking at ways to automate how we produce the basic control model, because the control model forms the basis of all our other models. It's kind of an overall picture. But it can be tedious because you're going to have to you're importing in floor plans and you're tracing over lines. So we're looking at ways to automate some of that process. But we only want to automate where it makes sense, and we don't want to introduce like human error or human behavioral challenges, because people become complacent when they automate everything. So we still want people to think at the same time, so we're able to understand issues and bring up challenges and things, risks that we might find along the way in the projects.
I struggle with managing like assumptions and the early designs. I do the same. I'm kind of the same person to rebuild.
Yeah.
Or when you get those early drawings and you're trying to build a model on them. Do you have any thoughts on like, would you let your team make assumptions about components that we know will be there but aren't called out in the drawing yet? Or do you say it's not explicitly on the drawing?
Yeah, we tend to our process is the VDC team will kind of take their initial thoughts and kind of document that in a way that they can bring it to a meeting with a pre-con team, and then we'll collectively decide if it makes sense to include or not include. And it might be that the question goes back to the client to see if they want to include that, or it might be these things were not included, but here is the quantities for that.
Did you change the contingency then?
Sorry?
Did you change the contingency then?
That would be, I guess, a question for our estimation team. If anyone had it.
I mean, you know, with all the missing parts and get not allowed to over that.
Yeah.
When we estimate everything.
You experience this hard to get to get it on complex shapes and on obviously.
Good question. Maybe Zoe and Han can answer that one if you find it better. But I know there are certain software packages that lend themselves to curves. Like Rhino is another one that we use. We don't use it in here, but we use it in Seattle quite often.
Actually, I kind of worried this. I have experienced that that is my first software and everything came after. And yes, I mean, the organic forms, it's better. It has a different edge behind. It's a related one. And particularly if we're speaking about the excavation portion, it is so interesting. It's and actually, I think that was under terms of the quantity default because software it was the background of the outbound. And yes, exactly was focused on the specific organic, like brain forgetting that I teach things that they will be. Thank you.
And next we have John. Yeah. I think the video. Too long.
I'm Shuwen. I'm with Bird. So I've been with Bird for 4-ish years. Before Bird, I was with Turner, not in this office though. It's 2 blocks down in the old office. And then I started my VDC career in the States. So I also was with Turner in the States. So today I want to talk about, we also do, utilize assemble and use the data, but what happens after we get all the data from assemble, and then this is more about operation and on-site, and mainly about a live interactive dashboard that we created from assemble. So before I start, I would like to play a video.
At Bird Construction, we are integrating the advantages of digitization with our construction expertise. In this context, we want to emphasize the benefits of construction dashboard for our projects. By consolidating activities on a digital platform, we provide real-time access to project metrics, promoting a shift from passive to proactive decision-making. Our model-centric approach enables the collection of extensive data across project stages, boosted by tools for model conditioning that enhance collaboration and data management, and platforms like Power BI for data centralization and analysis. The most significant challenges were to identify and replace inefficient manual processes, with automated workflows and real-time data input allowing well-organized data management and analytics, helping to reduce project delays, schedule slippage, and achieving significant cost savings. Bird Construction's initiative marks a revolutionary shift towards a smarter, more efficient construction industry. We are not just building projects, we are constructing the future.
So serves like a little promotion video. I know there's that's training. So all right, so let's delve into the details of how we do it. So we actually have a kind of a different workflow, kind of like a workaround to kind of separate the design model with the construction model. We're utilizing the construction model, but we're using parts in Revit. So who's familiar with parts or has ever utilized parts before? Okay. Well, there's another plugin called PCL parts. It's actually more robust than the native Revit parts. It's a plugin, it's free. You guys, you can try it, feel free to download it. So what we did is step 1, we have a parts template. What parts does is we have a blank template model, and then we link the design model in here. Then we create parts from design model. That way the parts is acting as a both layer of elements on top of design models. So if we make changes to the parts model itself, we're not making changes to the original design models. So I see some of you are confused, but it will make more sense later on. So our template, what it does is when we have the template, we have the design model, we link the design model into the template. It gives you a color legend and with all different customizable parameters. So this is where we can add the parameters that were not included in the design models. For example, we do 4D code, where we do zones or like build packages, stuff like that. So the parts model basically is an empty model. You can think about it that way. And then the empty model actually has a lot of data embedded into it. Right? And once we link the design model in it, then we create parts, we divide parts, and the parts will apply the template from the template file before with different colors. It also gives you the parts, so this one specifically works good for the concrete models. So you usually in concrete models, no offense, the columns are modeled all the way from the bottom to the top. So, so the parts actually has the function that you can divide everything with just a couple of clicks by different levels. So it divides it up automatically. And so once we have the parts model, we divide them, give them a color code. We can export the pour schedule sheets from Revit as well. And then this is a snapshot of the parts in this model. Basically, it has all the information. You have your levels, your zones, your family, your quantities. We also have 4D codes here, which will link to the P6 or MS project schedule, which will open another whole different conversation. I won't go into too much detail about that. But so this is so in the Revit parts model, you can do data input, or you can also use this model as an output to export your parts model to Assemble. So this is Assemble. So for you guys who are not so familiar with Assemble, Assemble has the model properties which export directly from your models, which is in this case our parts model. So in here you can see there's 40 codes and some basic information in the model. But then Assemble has its own Assemble properties, which live live on Assemble on the cloud. So you can make modification however you want to. So we have different categories. We have estimation category, we have material tracking category. So in the material tracking category, this is where our site team has their input. So so for example, here we have the actual start date, actual finish date, PO number, or even like concrete testing and all of those information. So talking about site involvement, we want to push the site team to have this collaboratively working together with the BPC team, not just us doing everything with the models. So the site team actually, we train them. Hasn't happened yet. It's the ideal world. The way we set up our parts model, we set up different views, different sheets. All they need to do when they want to make modifications for their poor break, they come into a model, go to the floor plan, whichever they want to modify, and click on the parts and edit the sketch. They can either draw the line or even change the shape. It's no difference from them making modification from their movie for scheduled drawings, right? So with it, probably a couple more clicks, but it makes sense. And then it creates a drawing for you right away. You can export to 2D if you want, or you can and then your quantities are there for you. So our ideal situation is we want to train the site super or field engineer, whoever is tracking the concrete, to do this task. So they're just drawing lines and changing this, and each of our sites have their own Revit license, or if they don't have license, they can use tokens. And so they should be the one doing this because they have the first-hand information. And the next one is, this is the view from Assemble. So in Assemble, you can set up different filters or rules to have different views. So our VDC team can help them to manage the views as organized as possible. So even like breaking down into like different week. So if we can have these views pre-saved for them, for example, in the next 6 weeks, and all they need to do is they open up their app on their phone and come into the view, click, maybe multi-select a couple of foundations. For example, if the foundations are happening outside right now. So they come into a view, select it, and all the highlighted yellow fields are the ones they can put on their own, just on their phone. So they click the foundation, they put the start date, or even later on after concrete is poured, they can put the different testing, 3 days, 7 days, and so on. So with all of these data inputted into Assemble, now it gets to how we utilize data to do a dashboard. So dashboard, first you need a database. So Power BI has connections with both Assemble and ACC. Now they're even trying to do with Teams or SharePoint. So that can all act as a database. Or if not, you can just simply export all the data to Excel. So Excel can serve as a database. And once you have the Excel database, so that's where we transform the data from Assemble to a database. And the next step would be data modeling. It's required a little bit like, you add a couple of equations or however you want to calculate your quantities from Assemble, or with a little simple coding to kind of organize your data and to eliminate the data you don't want to see. And this is where it happens. This is all inside Power BI Excel. And then the next step would be data visualization. So you can pick however you want to showcase your data dashboard. You can either do a pie chart or like a line graph, whatever that works for your site. And then, and then this is the interactive dashboard we came up with. So everything is interactive, and the data actually also is linked to Assemble. You can have the data refreshed automatically, or you can do it manually. But the data you know, because it's all on the cloud, that's the beauty of it. So every time you have a new input and you have question?
I see you building dashboards. Have you tried out, modeling it reflected on the dashboards, so maybe plugins or, applications like Laser also like me?
No, we haven't. All we did is, assemble Power BI dashboard. But like, are those, have you tried those? Are they?
Yes, so we used to do model tracking and essentially assign fields in the data to Excel sheets and we connect it to your similar dashboard, but it has a 3D component in it. So you can zoom around, in and out, and create slices so that the, let's say, the relevant data also identified. Creating that 3D visual that would help the site team and also management team to visualize the progress of the timeline.
Okay. There's actually another plugin in Assemble that can link to Power BI with the model viewer. That way you can have the model interactive on the level. Yeah.
My question was somewhat similar, just on quick for now. Have you guys tried any of this on, SACC platform services?
Like the data collector.
Data collector, model picture models, or anything like that, to the lead, you can also get pushed to Power BI, so I'm wondering if you guys have experimented. That's the platform, or the ACC platform.
Yeah, not so much. The reason is because we're using Revisto for model coordination and issue tracking. So we're kind of just using ACC as a model hosting platform.
Right.
And I would love to try that. I think it's the trend. Everybody's trying to move stuff around.
I think the answer that was, it's good to have the data warehouse in between, but you just migrate from side.
Well, there's a little bit Excel component to it. Yeah, it's, you know, and also like because you asked another question like well, Xenia, while she was talking, like if the data can transfer from Assemble to Revit, there's a workaround to it. It's not very straightforward, but there's a workaround to it. Even if it's inside the only Assemble properties, but you know, it's I think it's all interconnected. So.